everybody. My name is Evan Radisic. I'm the Managing Director of the Cloud Software Association. Today, we have Matt Irving from WP Engine. He's the Head of Global Partner Program and Strategy. So he's going to take us through what I think is one of the more tactical strategies when kind of onboarding and taking partners through the journey, like everything from kind of awareness acquisition all the way down to advocacy. It's absolutely kick-ass. So I won't take up any of his time. I'm going to hand it over to you, Matt, do a quick little intro and get into it. And please, people just ask questions. It can be super awkward on Zoom. So everybody knows that. So just be awkward and get in there. Yeah, we'll go from there. All right, Matt, take it over.
Perfect. Well, hello, everyone. Greetings from Austin, Texas. I'm Matt. I'm our Global Head of Partner Programs and Strategy here at WP Engine. We serve WordPress and customers who are really kind of navigating WordPress as a solution for a whole variety of workloads, e-com, corporate development sites, all the like. And we have the privilege of really stewarding WordPress's largest ecosystem of publishers, of agencies, of technology partners. And so it has been a wild ride. I've been there for about 2 years. Prior to that, spent some time in the venture capital space, working with SaaS companies and really kind of helping SaaS companies navigate channel, partnership, really kind of making that into an interesting asset. And so it's good to be here and share some stories and a framework that we've been using to kind of make heads or tails of our overall partner program. In terms of like the conversation, I've kind of structured this almost like a workshop that I would kind of take someone through. So highly interactive. And so if you have questions, if you want to interrupt, if you want to poke holes in anything, please do. That's what it's for. I'm looking at you, Sunir, because I know that we've gone back and forth on a lot of this. So without further ado, why don't we jump in here? So I'm going to do the awkward part of putting this into a screen share here.
Yeah, you should be good to go, I think.
Yeah, nothing like a good live demo. All right. Can everyone see my screen okay? Text size okay? Thumbs up. Awesome. Cool. Well, so I always love to kind of start these sessions it's funny, Evan and I were just talking about this. I actually got this phrase from PayPal's head of partnerships on really where are you better together? Like better together is kind of this whole methodology of where are you as a vendor related into an overall ecosystem, and where are you really better together with your partners? And so anytime I always think about partnerships, like that's always kind of the litmus test or the head nod, like, are you truly better together with someone, or is it really just words? And so to kind of map our time, I always like to just be able to kind of go back to like the fundamentals. If I was going to rebuild a program, or if I my current role, like where we're scaling up multiple programs, where do you kind of come back to in a methodology of making sense of all this stuff? And then we'll kind of walk through each of the stages that I outlined. In the partner journey, there's really kind of 4 main pillars for this. So awareness, whose radar are you trying to get on, who even has those customers? Acquisition, really where do you really go partner with that customer, with a potential partner? Activation, how do you really go get that first win and start kind of getting those repeat wins? And then overall advocacy, like where does that partner really become a big champion for you with their customer base? And then some parting partner thoughts here at the end in terms of application. So just a quick survey, just so I kind of know like where people are. And you don't have to come off mute for this, but how many of you would say you're in the middle of like a really kind of defining a partner program from the outset? Any hand raise? All right, cool. And then in terms of like a mid stage, like you've had a partner program for a while, how many of you kind of are in that kind of scaling stage? Okay, cool. And then one last one here. How many of you are running multiple adjacent partner programs, meaning like maybe an agency, maybe an affiliate channel, overall distribution? And then how many of you are really just kind of running like one singular program? So I kind of get a good idea of who's here for that. Okay, cool. Awesome. So I'll start with kind of the overall framework of what we developed and kind of how we were thinking about it. So typically whenever we have, or with WP Engine as a whole, one of the first things that had really kind of come up around thinking about partners was a typical sales funnel. And this is the classic like Brian Halligan funnel. Like you have the ADA for framework. So you have a lot of people that you could work with. You're going to convince them over time. There are a few of them are become partners, and then you're off to the race. But as many of you know who are scaling partner programs, like signing the contract is the very, very beginning of a partnership, not the end. And so when we started looking at it, I thought about, well, that broken funnel is probably not the right way for us to look at it. So really, where would we actually flip that? So there's a lot of people that we look at out as strangers. This is really the awareness category. Where we're playing the market, who are people that already have our current customers, what's the ideal customer profile, all those good things. And then start looking at our overall acquisition. How many of these people can we really get on our radar, go tell that story? How many of these kind of meet a head nod test? So we use this as really kind of a qualification and a disqualification phase. So how many people would we love to work with, but it's just not going to happen? Versus how many people could we actually work with and really start building out some use cases and some playbooks, which would lead us in the activation stage. How do we get that first win together, that first referenceable case study? How do we really go start and go tell that story over and over? And then really from there, we start looking at it in terms of an overall commitment. Where are we actually a partnership? What are the terms and the bounds of what all that's going to look like? Further going into onboarding, how do we enable them? And then ultimately, like, where are they overall advocates? If we're going to boil all of that down into kind of one thing, we often call it like an E3 model. And so we have a model for this in our Salesforce account level, but we affectionately call it the E3. How many people have we engaged with? How many people have we enabled? And then how many people are just enamored with us? And so if you go to any of like our business reviews on partner, that E3 model comes up out of the total identifiable market of people that we could potentially partner with. X amount have been engaged, X amount have been enabled, and X amount of them have been enamored. And then how are we just kind of moving people to the right side of this framework? And so as many of you are scaling, I think it's always very, very helpful to kind of come back to the fundamentals. Like, why are you partnering with some third party and introducing them into your overall customer lifecycle? And so for our partner programs and our strategy, we have existing publishers, we have existing agencies, service providers, refer, resell, standard distribute, real kind of like distribution partners, and then technology partners, people who are integrating within our platform and really kind of adding on. And so those are kind of the buckets that we look at. But every time we evaluate one of these programs and do this on an annual basis, I find that these kind of questions are really helpful. So like, what is the value chain? Like, what are you delivering? What is the customer wanting? Where and how much of that statement of work and that overall implementation are you responsible for? What does that look like? What is the overall offering for it? And then really kind of as you're looking at the maturity model, 3 big process maps are just wildly helpful here. So what is the customer journey from lead all the way through retention? Who do they talk to? How do they enter in your funnel? How much of this is sales led versus self-serve? And then what underneath that, what are all the processes that have to happen? So Evan and I were talking about this of COVID and other SaaS vendors of like, you then end up in this realm of like lots and lots of response, lots and lots of stuff going on. So from a customer perspective, like how are you that smooth swan that's on top of the pond, but underneath like you're frantically paddling like back and forth. And that's really kind of where that process map comes into play. And then with process, just because I'm an operations guy, systems are wildly important here. So like how much of this is really manual systems? I've been a part of organizations where the partner approval process was very, very complicated sticky notes or a tap on the shoulder of someone. And for the partner, it was really like a whole lead form. It looked super clean and polished, but on the back end, it's really just people kind of connecting with people to go figure out who this needs to go to and kind of cobble together a Salesforce record. And so always kind of a fun, kind of scrappy way to go with this. But I think in all of this stuff, all of these maps and all of this kind of journey that you're going to be mapping out, the real next part and really where the rubber meets the road is really where do you want partners to really intersect with that customer journey? And that's probably the most critical insight that we had of over time, most referral programs, most partner programs really kind of start as demand generation only. Help us go find some customers. Let's go get some customers together. And that's about it. And then beyond that, you'll probably then evolve into a co-selling process. Like where can we both kind of complement each other? Where do we get embedded in each other's statements of work? What do those implementations look like? How does that work? Then you start really getting the implementation phase. Then you get into upsell and retention. And before you know it, your partners are spanning your whole customer journey. And so again, this kind of goes back to like, where do you want to partner with a third party? Where are you comfortable with this? There are great tools on the market to help you really go look at this. AppBind, big shout out to Sinir, who's mapped out a lot of this in terms of like overall complexity. But fundamentally, there's just so many great benefits of like going through the exercise with this and for your teams. And so as a really good example, Bright Vessel has a great model for this. And I'll share all these examples in this, but they probably had the cleanest view of like, what are our overall kind of funnel stages? What are the steps in each individual stage? What are the touch points and things and tactics and systems and processes that go underneath it? And then what are the teams that are involved in this? Having this as an asset or as an artifact of the meeting that you can take out helps tremendously with organizational alignment of this isn't just a partner program or Evan had this like great model of like, you're not just some cute program that's like in the background, like you are a critical engine of distribution and delivery all throughout the organization. And the more that I think that you can show things like this, the more it's helpful and easier for you to align different parts of the organization with it. Sales buy-in, where are they going to interact with the partner? Marketing, how do you actually get them on board for helping you go acquire and go find out different types of partners? What are the assets that are broken, things that are needed? Like, how does that really kind of work and scale? And so before, I know that's kind of a lot, but how many of you have kind of gone through like an exercise like this of mapping your funnel to your customer journey to your partner touch points? Like, where's this worked? Where's this kind of fallen flat for you?
I'll tell you one thing that I was talking to someone from the CSA yesterday. I'm always surprised how many people don't talk with their partners. They're always talking at the partners. But he pointed out that, well, in his experience, the partners didn't want to tell him what they were doing with this product because there was like, well, they won't going to tell me because that's how they make their money. They're not going to tell me what they're doing, which is interesting to me. I've never had that experience exactly, but there is some level of trust required at the outset, which is usually when I talk. Now I'm in the sales process to agencies directly. I always start with some jokes about their pain and how clearly, like, no, they don't care about any like software vendor. It's only about them and their clients. Basically, is the story because that's how they feel. Like they feel like we want them to care about us. But I start with that now to disarm them. But there's a little bit of conflict actually usually when you start talking to partners, which is interesting.
Yeah, on my end, Matt, I've watched some of your stuff before, especially like the bow tie methodology, which has been really valuable. In my world, a lot of the strategic partners that we approach, they don't monetize their business in the same way that we are thinking about leveraging our relationship and their tech. So, excuse me, the qualification piece is hands down becoming one of the most important pieces of the equation, because it used to be to Sinir's point, right? We would, because of how big we are, we would approach smaller players. We would just assume that they would want to partner with us, and we would find really quick that they would see that one, it's not their business model. Two, it'd be a shit ton of work for them to implement, develop. It'd be costly. They want a bunch of money up front. So it's been interesting. We've been really shifting our almost kind of pitch to them to say, hey, listen, we understand that your buyers buy for different reasons and our buyers buy for different reasons, but we believe, or our hypothesis shows, that 1+1 could potentially equal 5, right? And here are some exact use cases of what our customers want and what we think you could do to help. And since we've made that shift, it has not only helped us identify better partners, but it's disqualified really quick, right? It's like some players are just like, whoa, we don't want to touch that. You know what I mean? So I like that piece of your funnel, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad it's helpful.
Yeah, it's helpful to see different viewpoints of this. I mean, we integrate across partners across our customer success teams, our go-to-market teams. We have joint sales pitches and actually, you know, partner-led models for sales pitches, and we even have partners doing our level 1 support for like APAC regions and things that, you know, like because they're there and their model is a lot more efficient than us trying to stand up somebody for when we might get a you know, a level 1 inquiry. So but I like the visualization of like this thing, this from Bright Vessel, for instance. That's like this highly valuable, just to help tell the story even more crisper, right?
Yeah,
more crisp.
Yeah, and I think like when you go back to the value equation that was raised earlier, I mean, like where your partner is really going to where you line with their overall revenue model is completely correlated to their interest. Getting someone to just do something that is outside their core offering is monumentally difficult, and it's super hard to sustain. And so, like, what are the areas where it's going to be really adjacent? I think this is also helpful for even like kind of cohorting your types of partners. Like, there might be people who work all the way across the whole life cycle, maybe people that only work in a portion, but really being able to help go define that, not only internally, but even to the point that was raised earlier, even externally. People can kind of self-select of, hey, it's good to know that you're out here. This is going to be a great strategic alliance, but we're not really going to invest a lot of time and dollars and effort in really building out a full integration, because it may just not make sense overall. Another view at this earlier was shared by Peter Lay, and I thought Gartner did a great job of just in terms of like an overall process flow map of just kind of seeing like where all this kind of fits and how this plays, but just another kind of variant on that overall customer journey piece. And so really for here in the rest of the presentation, I'll just kind of go through like each stage, and then we can just camp out and kind of ask a couple of questions here. But on the awareness side, I think like this is very, very helpful of seeing, you know, who is your ideal customer profile? What are the services that they're looking for? Where are you in the value chain? Like, so for us in hosting, you know, we're not involved in building out the website. We're not involved in the creative part of it. We're not really involved in the strategy portion. We keep a lot of the security and uptime and a lot of the throughput of it, but really the outputs of it. That's really where we align really well with the professional services organization. And so for us, like being really, really clear of like, where do we start and stop? Where does a third party start and stop? What does that look like blended in terms of if we're going a traditional kind of partnership or even gray label? Here's where we are, here's where you are, or even white label. Here's where they are as a proxy of us. Those have been some great ways of helping us kind of look at what all that looks like. And so if we go down like even one click further, so you've gotten on the radar of these third parties, you've started to qualify and go a little bit deeper. So on the acquisition side, I think this is really, really helpful. And again, like it's as valuable for where you're going to spend your time versus like those who are just, you're going to stay on the radar. But on the acquisition side, like what are those head nod moments? When you go tell a case study of where a customer has won with you, like where does that head nod come into play of, yep, that lines exactly up with my professional services offering, or yep, I have a closed distribution network, so an SHI, for example. Like where are those moments of, head nod. And I think one thing that's very, very helpful here is what is the least friction way that you can get someone's skin in the game to try you out. So for us, like one of the things that we found early on was giving someone a developer account to really just try us out was the fastest way for them to really get a feel if they were going to work with us or not. Like one measurement that we look at is what's the time to the first actual conversion with a development account as opposed to one without. So we see about a third less time to that first deal if we empower you with a little bit of enablement behind it, which makes sense if you're swapping out one tooling set for us or whatever it might be. But that's a great way of starting to look at it. Like, is it trial? Is it a co-sell process? Is it standard referral? Is there a co-marketing initiative that you can do in this? But I found that to be a really good way of let's get a feel for each other, like, and see, like, is there any way that any of us could work together here in the acquisition stages, even before we even go any further. In terms of like your business models out here, like, has that been feasible in terms of trials? Like, how many of you offer trials to your partners, or do you find more the enablement route is helpful? Like, how do you kind of validate that head nod, if you will?
Yeah, I can jump. Go ahead, Ashley.
I was just going to add that I've seen the trial route work really well in the past. I think it's really nice to build a proof of concept that they can use to learn a little bit more about the success metrics that they can talk about with other future clients to drive referrals. Clyde's kind of in a unique situation where we don't have a paid platform. So like you don't have to pay upfront to use us. We have like a transactional business model. So it kind of presents a different challenge. Like we can't really do trials. We're just more like, just get started. So we try to go through like the account mapping exercise and try to identify a shared client as that kind of proof of concept example early on.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jason, I cut you off there.
Yeah, no, we have some activation with developers. So some partners, they like who are really deep in the industry, just want like, hey, give us a tool, let us try it out, let's hack on it, right? And so we've got developer accounts that we provide actually a private sandboxes with, and then we have some ancillary products that we're able to take and run like demo scans. So we do a lot of like automated accessibility and SEO testing. So we just do a sample scan of like first 100 pages of a site, and we'll go on the partner page and look up their top 3 customers and just run a demo scan. We've got it down to a pretty clean process. It's a 14-minute job, I think, to activate it, test it, and verify it, before they ship out. So it's pretty easy from our standpoint. We found those actually get a lot more interest because it's something that partners can take into new pitches and into existing clients for additional services business on top of like just like platform revamp. So I'm right with you.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful use case. I think especially if you think about even like beta programs, like opening up an API endpoint and seeing like what would happen in a sandbox view, gave them the creative license to go build something interesting and unique. So it's great feedback for your product teams. It's great MVPs back for your marketing teams. Being able to even use those against like shared customers and case studies of, hey, here is a great proof of concept that could easily be scaled. One thing I've tried in the past has even been pre-configured development environments specifically for a use case. So then like it's a built-in sales tool. Like, oh, this was in the a security knock center, but basically you would be able to walk in and be able to say, so what would you use for penetration testing? Oh, awesome. Like here's a pre-configured report that's basically looking for these types of vulnerabilities, that's looking for this. Here's kind of the whole overall output. And I think it helps take a case study from just like an ethereal concept to like a real world example of, hey, I see exactly what this would be. I know exactly what the engagement would look like. I know how this would be deployed.
Yeah, and I mean, it's tough too initially. Like, you know, at our company, everybody looking at me cross-eyed when I said I wanted to, you know, I wanted to get a demo version of our products. And everybody, you know, the first pushback was, no way, we can't do this. We've never done it. No way. And then they start looking at it. They're like, oh, okay, if we did it this way and we pared it down and just made it smaller, then yeah, we could probably, you know, chunk these out pretty easily. I would push into the organization to get some of these demos and some of these things enabled. I think it's a huge advantage, actually.
I think with your leadership too, those are always interesting conversations of, let's think about it from like a traditional SaaS kind of perspective. So let's say you didn't have the demo. So you have fully loaded sales cost, basically for someone to go tell that story. Who's then gonna have to go to a marketer and go figure out some way to kind of package it all up and then go sell it. And then like whatever the lead time is of like building that out. And then all of that has to be then subsidized by month one bookings for it to be worth it. And then you take the argument back from a partner perspective around like, well, partnerships are a self-funding model because the accrual of having a professional service team not only takes care of the booking because you have a lower cost of acquisition, but the retention that you're gaining on someone being embedded with your customer that's looking for abilities for grow and scale and retention, all of that then goes back into being able to fund back. What would you do with an expanded developer plan? What would you do with another API endpoint? What would you do with all this stuff? It's not guessing at what your customer would want, or I like the way Sunir put it, like you're not just talking at what your partner should buy, you're actually validating against what they want and what their customers are asking for.
Yeah, I love it.
How many of you have developer advocates or even like people being embedded on that side? Like anyone playing in that space? Is that for the developer advocate? Are they part of the partner team, or like where do they kind of complement the partner journey in your world?
Yeah, in my scenario, it used to be part of our professional services team, which our PS team was 4 people, so it wasn't like but it used to be part of that team, and so those guys every time they had to do a training, they wanted to get paid for it, they wanted to prep time for it, and so what happened is nobody ended up getting trained. And nobody ended up getting certified on the platform because it was too much of a hassle. It was easier to just go figure it out, right? Mm-hmm. And so I brought that person into our team, moved it from a training function to an advocacy function, and it's been a game changer, for how we engage with the people like on the ground who have to actually do the work in the platform.
And as we're kind of working through the funnel, so we're here at the acquisition stages. We're trying to prove that, like, if there's gonna be a partner or not. How many of you offer leads to potential partners? Like, they're not yet part of the partner system. This is the chicken or the egg problem of like, we can become a partner once we have the right engagement, but we don't really have the right engagement yet, so we really can't become a partner. How many of you kind of kickstart a lead to really kind of get out of the chicken or the egg problem? I see Sunir laughing. I imagine he's got some good stories here.
It is really such a chicken or the egg situation, because like you don't know the quality of work yet, or how that partner is going to engage with the referral. I think we're kind of in a good spot because I think we've got pre-existing relationships that we've brought into the partner program early on here at Clyde. So like we kind of know the quality of work done by these agencies that we're planning to work with. So I have found that sending leads is the best way to kick things off. both for getting the partner hyped up about working with us, but then also like if it goes well, getting our teams hyped up about what the partner can do with that account. So I totally agree with you. I'm of the mindset that like, let's give it a shot and see how it goes, and make sure that we do as much enablement up front with the partner to ensure that it's like a smooth handoff.
Here's the thing, we're all relationship sellers, so we're all like terrified bringing one of our service partner channels to a customer because we feel like our reputation's on the line every time we do a deal like this. But sometimes you just got to do it, right? Yeah. And you just use a customer you don't care about, and a partner you don't know about, and find out what happens. I mean, it's all you can do. But another way you can do it is to be totally upfront with the customer. It's like, I don't know them very well. I just met them. They say they can do this. Here's a couple options as well. Maybe give them 3. Tell me, and then ask them. I'd like to follow up with you what the conversation was like, right? And as long as you give them the honest expectation going in there. I don't know them yet, but they say they can do it, and you might know some reason that they can do it because they've been doing it for other clients. And then you ask them for feedback afterwards. How was it? I just did this for referring a couple. Someone was looking for like Zapier consultants from the outbound ecosystem. I just referred a couple to somebody, and found out whether they were good or bad. So but you can just do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it largely depends also like on what your solution is. Like, is it, I'm working with a client now where they're bigger deals, there's much more hand holding, and it's if something went wrong, things can really impact the client. In that respect, it's like there's almost like this crawl before we walk. So like, one of the AEs or somebody from customer success would kind of join them, or at least on the pre-qualifying or like the initial meeting, to be like, because you can usually pretty quickly tell like, oh, okay, like these guys really don't have their stuff together, or so it really depends. Like, I think definitely shying away from just like handing it off and see what happens if it can really mess up a client. But if it's a lower touch point product where it's like, hey, like having a typo or something like that, like, it's not going to really break anything like too bad, then I do agree, like somebody's got to take a leap of faith, and it's usually not going to be the partner. So like you kind of have to give them that leeway. So I think you really kind of keep it in mind, like what could happen, right? And kind of calculating that ROI like really quickly, right?
I think that's a great call out. In a previous organization, one of our channel leads always kind of had this mantra of trust is really kind of the currency of like all business. And so if you think about relationship selling, what is it? Like you have a hypothesis of trust and value that the more that you both invest in each other, like the more value is going to come out of it. And so one of the one tactic that I've seen that's worked really well too is even using closed loss deals. So who are those customers that you really couldn't win that you could actually bring in a partner, and that's a mutual win for both parties. Like you've now like resurrected a customer. You're the hero of marketing. You're the hero of sales. Whenever sales is looking back at marketing of like, these leads suck. Like none of this happened. Well, now we actually have a good customer use case. And winning trust like that, especially disproportionate trust, where you had previously lost a customer, or you weren't right at the time, or you weren't ready, or whatever it might be. That's another great way of being able to look at how do you have, Evan, your point, a lower risk threshold. There's not much to lose with a closed loss deal, and then being able to go win them with a partner.
Yeah, I pushed the team with kind of this little mantra internally around deals create partnerships. Mm-hmm. Partnerships don't create deals.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the intention of partnerships isn't really going to pay anyone's paycheck. It's really
gonna be. And I mean, stuff's gonna happen too. Like it's almost like warranty claims. It's like you just know 5% is gonna come back. Like so don't go into it thinking nothing will ever go wrong. It will go wrong. And what's the accepted amount, right?
Yeah, that's a good call. And I think like this is where, as you think about your customer journey, because this is already kind of a prerequisite before you're here, is think about those experiments of where lead distribution could work at those different points. So on retention, like when was the last time a CX rep couldn't put hands on keyboards and they were outside of the realm of scope of support, and they had to tell that customer like, hey, we can't help you, we're sorry. Being able to have someone that can help not only save that customer, but also even as that further delivery and investment in that customer to stay with you and even grow their use case. That's a great experiment on a co-selling process. Like, what's someone that can go expand an existing relationship and maybe get a little bit more ARPU in terms of like the language of SaaS, like a bigger deal, as opposed to like experimenting on wallet share. Same thing on lead distribution. Like, these are great experiments for you to be able to look at if your leads are kind of the currency which could, end the chicken or the egg problem. Where could you try out those experiments pre-sales, during the sale itself, or even like post-sale? Oh yeah.
This is Bradley. Nice to meet you. Going back to the previous slide, with respect to WP Engine, when it comes to acquisition, was most of your, I see you guys are a large company. Is it mostly inbound? Is it mostly outbound? And I'm curious, kind of focusing in on the outbound. I don't know if you have any tips or suggestions that can be applied, for many people participating here.
Yeah. So we're heavily channel based, and a lot of that has really become, again, like really kind of where we sit in the value equation. There are people building websites and they need somewhere to park them, right? They need somewhere to park them that's going to be secure and that's going to have great extensibility, that's going to be backed up well, like the infrastructure solid. So part of it is a benefit of being here, like in the value chain. So there's a lot of people that we can kind of plug into, both at professional service realm, like there are people building websites. There are people in the professional service realm that are optimizing websites. There are people out even buying and selling sites. So like there's like distribution plays there. And so when we thought about it, we looked at the beginning of the whole partner program started with affiliates. People who were writing content and writing reviews of like hosting platforms, and seeing how many of those not only just write content, but also have some realm of professional services. And that kind of led to a key insight that people working with us who have professional services had a greater share of dollars for their professional services relative per dollar of what they were spending in infrastructure with someone else, meaning that they were getting more margin by working with us than someone else. So from an outbound perspective, that becomes like really compelling of like, hey, you have $1 million statement of work. How much of that do you want to proportion out in cost, and how much of that do you want to go make in revenue? And so like that's kind of led to really where the value is for our partners, and then being able to put that into an outbound message as we go look at where do we really want to go help. Our mission of our partner program is how do we go help as many third parties with as many ways of working with us with as little friction as possible. And so from an outbound perspective, when we think about overall business development, like we're out, with the Accentures of the world all the way down to, a freelancer who's helping out on a really small project, pretty much anything in between. But, I've been a part of like other organizations where it's more selective. And I think you still kind of go back to the same thing, like where your customer's successful, you're probably not the only person that they're working with. So like, who are other vendors that customer is working with? What's kind of the realm of like professional services or implementation or anything like that? And then being able to use that as kind of a springboard of what are kind of the pools and pockets of people that you want to go work with. I think the trick on outbound, I mean, just from having spent some time on it, and I think it goes back from like the bookings to accrual conversation that we were having. When you start focusing business development people or salespeople on going to go acquire partners, really experiment with their comp model being based on like overall pipeline distribution versus like MRR bookings. So like buy them time and buy them the runway to go see customers be successful, because of the outbound motion piece of it. Like that's the that's the hardest piece to go justify, because like from a management or like VC background, the first question that you'll get is like, well, you have a lot of people out here making relationships, and like everyone's got a great deal that they're waiting on, and this customer is like right around the corner from making it big, but we haven't seen it in bookings. And so like, is this really working or is it not? And so as you think about that outbound motion, like what are those leading indicators in your business that are going to make sense? So be it pipeline, be it the amount of trade shows that you're able to get into, markets that you're starting to be able to penetrate, like this model of like lead to conversion will help you go look at where are our BD people successful if we don't want them closing deals. So how many partners can they go acquire? How much pipeline can they generate? What's the conversion rate of pipeline to closed one? What's conversion of pipeline for new versus upgrade? Like those kinds of things will help you go justify more and more of the inbound and outbound efforts.
Great.
In terms of your model, like just out of curiosity, do you have sellers who are working both with partners, like in a partner management role, and they're closing deals, or is there differentiation between those roles? Like what does that look like in your work?
That question to me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I mean, our partners, as background, I'm with a company called Ribbon, so we provide digital rewards. So our primary target market are market researchers and marketers. And so we're after the classic digital marketing agencies who are looking to leverage digital rewards as a way to increase response rates and engagement with customers. So yeah, we're in the process of hiring a partner development manager to do this outbound acquisition model.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's a big wide market for sure.
Yeah.
I was going to ask how you've chosen to structure your teams based on this bow tie funnel. Like, do you have folks that are dedicated to the front end, like partner acquisition, and then those that are dedicated to activation and enablement?
Yeah, so we aligned our team for the operation hub, which basically goes throughout each of our organizational pillars. So our operational hub looks after our publishers, our agencies, and our tech partners. And so our team is basically structured in terms of systems. So what are the core systems, both on the CX side, our sales side, and our billing side, and making sure that there's a partner voice that's speaking back into that roadmap. What are we looking for? What kind of visibility do we need? What do we need to report back on? So we have a partner systems lead. We have a partner enablement lead who's making sure what's the enablement content for partners at each stage of the customer lifecycle that we need to put out. So that person is like a subject matter expert for each of our marketing teams, our sales enablement team, our CX teams. So we think of them as like anyone who's like partner facing, they're going to talk with this person to go figure out like what's on their messaging roadmap, what should be coming out on landing pages, what does that mean in terms of like the conversion rate optimization teams of what metrics are we trying to move up and down, and then partner incentives. And so everything in terms of like referral commissions, resell discounts, in our world, like an annuity type of structure. So if you have a book of business with us, what is your reward for that book of business growing larger, as well as what happens if that book of business gets smaller, so that there's skin in the game from both a acquisition and a retention perspective. And so when we go back to the business to go talk about how we kind of frame everything, it's our partners are successful when they have the right skills, they have the right incentives, and they have the right enablement. And so we've kind of built our systems around that. So systems, incentives, and enablement.
Awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm thinking about team growth and structure as well, and I think partner enablement is such a key part of the equation. But it's about setting the right kind of incentives also for your team as well. and like how you structure KPIs, whether they're focused on like the first half of the bow tie versus the second.
Yeah, I think like this is where, if anything, we really created the bow tie funnel as an internal communication tool of like, where, for whatever meeting that we're in, where does your organization talk to partners, because they do. In finance, like we use this as an alignment tool all the time between CAC to LTV, so you're not kind of caught in that trap. We use it with sales all the time. Like we're not your only method towards bookings, and we're helping you go self-fund with accruals. And so that internal alignment, I think, is a big piece of where you can be a subject matter expert for your broad-based teams. And even early on, like it also helps provide that executive oversight of helping them kind of see around the corner of like, what kind of investments are you asking for? Where do they kind of align? What are the KPIs that you're trying to go measure? So for like here at the bottom of the funnel, you'll see what are the main KPIs that we point back to. And that's been a really great way of like, how many marketing qualified leads we created, how many agency accounts do we have. We measure everything when we talk about partners in terms of signed partners versus approved. And so I spent some time in the VC space. Like I got battered around like the idea of the vanity metrics. So like approved partners are like known universe, is like easy to talk about, but it's hard to get people excited about because it doesn't really have a big impact on a specific KPI. So I think the more that like you can kind of tie each KPI to the teams that like they really that KPI really matters to, that really kind of helps that internal head nod, because partnerships are a full company, full team sport for sure.
Couldn't agree more.
Let's see. So
on that question, Matt, I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you pitched this idea to the brass, what was the first metric they threw at you as their expectation before investing? Like, what probably wasn't MQLs. Like, what were they looking for straight off the bat?
Unique transacting agencies. That was the number one metric that came back to us. How many specific unique agencies were transacting with us on a given month? And they had measured it. The top brass was like, this needs to be compounding up and to the right. So it needs to be accretive and always going up. And there was a key insight when we went back to brass. We said, that's helpful, but that's a deceptive metric if that's all you're looking at, because if your unique transacting agencies is always increasing month over month, it means that you actually don't really have a retention of a base of partners that continue to transact per month. And so what you want is almost a weighted metric so that you have scalable growth. So we look at unique transacting agencies now as a ratio of repeat partners and new partners. And that kind of helps us like show, here's the base of partners that are continuously activated and they're selling with us, and they're repeat, as well as here's new. And here's kind of what that ratio is looking like over time. So for us, when we look at how many partners did we sign, and then what's that unique ratio, we're looking for like a good, there's a ratio we try to keep in mind, but that kind of helps us be able to look at how well are we doing at getting people to sign up. That's great. How many people are we getting to transact? That's good. How many people are transacting over and over and over and becoming advocates? That's awesome.
That's extremely helpful. You have no idea. Thank you.
What are other kind of core North Star metrics that you're using in your orgs? Like unique transacting agencies is probably one of ours, but what are some others that are on the call?
Yeah, I can jump in. So in our case, I've worked to push our metrics into the business metrics. So like marketing, for instance, when they report pipeline growth, they report website growth, partner growth, sales growth. So they report our pipeline numbers out as part of theirs. And when we talk about our bookings growth. It's all included in one number, and then it breaks out by where it came from too. So that part of their number is part of our number. So what's been interesting to me, because it's the first time I haven't actually, I still report out metrics and things, but like when we go to the board, yeah. I've gotten away from actually having any speaking parts, because everybody takes part of the partner pitch into theirs, and so I don't have anything to do.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot, of a partner mindset, like internally, like that's the partner operations job, inside versus out. So how do we help any partner-facing team, or really any team, really think about their roadmap and its impact on our ecosystem, to the point, like from a cultural perspective, each of our meeting rooms has a blue chair in it, and that blue chair is significant, because it basically helps us kind of think of like, who's that partner that's like in the room with us when we're making this decision. Like, if we're gonna
like that,
a plan that's only available through sales reps, like what kind of partner impact is that? Like, how would we speak to a partner about that? Like, what does that look like? So even like culturally, like that's how deep I think you have to get at the behavior level. Like, what does this mean for partners?
Yeah, love it.
Yeah. Let's see, we're kind of here near the top of the hour. I'll briefly touch back on advocacy. Again, this is really going to go tell that customer story for those of you that are scaling programs, like this very, very well. But each of those use cases, I think, are great ways of how do you take that into a trial that a partner can have their hands on keyboards to even test it out, to validate, like, if there's going to be a partnership. How do you help turn dev accounts or trials into sales tools that people could use? I think probably one of my favorite examples of this was the HubSpot marketing grader. And so you plug in your website, it would give you a ranking on like, how well are you at backlinks? How well are you doing at SEO? How well are you doing at inbound marketing? It just validated like your need for HubSpot and inbound, and you didn't even know what this product or what even inbound was. That was cool. What was even cooler is you had agencies, now these inbound experts, using the HubSpot marketing grader with every one of their clients. And now you've become an extension of how they win business. And so lots of interesting applications in that, as you think about like, how do you make that that inordinate value just scream from like a prospecting tool that just is continuously reinforced all throughout that buying journey. And I think as you look at developing that and instilling that in your partners, how do you do that credibly? How do you develop competencies around it where they just do it over and over and over, and then like overall capacity? And so I think, and I'll leave this, and then we can maybe even just open up any other questions, but kind of just some parting thoughts. Like, again, were you better together with your partner across your whole customer journey? And if that's true, if that's the hypothesis, what are experiments throughout the customer journey that you can test to go validate that? Were you better together in retention? Were you better together in closed lost cancellations? Maybe even being able to save customers in the same way you are in terms of like the marketing demand gen funnel, your sales with process. How do you make each one of those touch points just incredibly delightful and seamless? And then really together with your partner, how do you just obsess over the customer value? I think these three questions will help you, or maybe give you some fodder to kind of take back to your programs. But that's really all I have for the presentation. Any questions or anything that's come up that we haven't gone through?
This is great. I mean, there's a lot here, obviously, but I think it was a pretty good discussion. We've still got 5 minutes, so yeah. I mean, there's always a weird awkwardness of like, how long do you let the silence go before somebody marinates for a question? So I can just sit here for 5 minutes.
Hey, so Matt, when you're looking at the funnel, at the bow tie, So the front funnel is, I mean, I think we all pretty used to that. Have you seen, like, in a backside of the funnel, with especially with partners, and especially with sometimes smaller teams or smaller partners overall, that like they'll get into a deal and they'll do implementation and work for that client and basically just go away for 3 months until they come back for air because they can only do 1 or 2 projects at a time or whatever. And so what I find is like they almost have to come back around to the front to the front of that back funnel, to get like re-engaged and spun back up. And so I've had to adjust a bit for that. I don't know if you got any trick shots for those kinds of like rebound partners at all.
Yeah, so we have a measurement. It's just referral frequency over time that looks at an account level. So we have our data model, and if this gets too far in the weeds, please tell me. But our data model at an account level in Salesforce has a horizontal view of the unique amount of agencies that we're talking to, that we know of, that are anywhere in the funnel. And then we have a vertical view per agency of what demand or close won business or activity is associated with each one. And so then that distance between the unique agency and their activity with us, we measure that delta constantly. And so we have reports that basically kind of break out in cohorts of who are our top repeat partners week over week, month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year. And then where is referral rate increasing? That's where our business development folks are probably spending the deepest amount of time with a lot of their folks. Like, don't spend a lot of time trying to convert the unconvertible. Like, who are the people widely adopted and helping them maintain that pace? And then in terms of like a concentric circle, like who are people that are probably neutral on that referral rate over whatever the given time is? So we think about reactivation campaigns. What are new case studies, new product announcements, like things that they could add to their maintenance agreements as much as they can think about their lead generation activities. That's a great way of kind of spurring on that activity. And then that third cohort, we put into more or less like a nurture phase that our business development lead or whoever's running the relationship reaches out to them often, but the majority of touch points with that third party are case studies, webinars, like a free-flowing kind of like pattern recognition. So the main thing that we try to do is we try to baseline for the size of agency or publisher or technology partner, what's kind of their production cycle. So when are they out getting customers, and then when do they go kind of underground to go work on that work, and then when are they out going to go try to go find other customers. And so we've got a pretty good idea of like what that referral frequency should be from a baseline. And then one of the things we're working on right now with our partner portal is helping give visibility to each of our partners of where they rank amongst their peers. And so it's kind of created this interesting kind of gamification around like, hey, if I'm working on e-com customers, this is about what I'm seeing in terms of project size. This is about how many customers I'm seeing. These are what kind of professional services we're seeing. And that's been a great way to not only help partners be able to work amongst each other, but also like healthy, good competition in it as well. And so that's a little bit about how we use referral frequency as a way to find out where should we spend time, where should we be worried, like that kind of back and forth.
Great. Oh yeah, awesome. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. We are at time here, but Matt's a longtime CSA member and he is on Slack. So if you do have any questions, shoot them over in the Slack community, and we'll get them answered. And yeah, thanks for everybody for joining us. And Matt, thanks again for the presentation.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks all. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.